Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Spooky Life Experiences thread. Let me start by saying I've never posted to this board before, but I lurk pretty often and have for quite some time. But I'm bored. I have some stories and a lot more from my friends and family. I'll start with a quick one of my own. Be about 5 years old, very late 90s. Granny's poodle named Missy Dies was a mean little shit who bit me a few times. Uncle buried her in our backyard right after. Everyone moves on pretty quick. Be about 2 weeks or so later, I am watching TV in the living room while my mother is out at the store. For some reason, I have this odd urge to look down throughout our kitchen to the back door, which may have caught movement from my peripheral vision. See the dog walk in, looking pretty normal as if she was alive through the back door. Not sure how she got through the back door on her own, but I am stupid kid, so don't think much of it. Watch her look at me, move from the left to the right where the food we kept in the back hallway for my new kitten. She goes to the bowl and seems to be eating it or trying to, then looks up at me again to stare at me for a while before she walks into the bathroom. Quickly get up and run after her to the bathroom, but don't see her anywhere. Tear the bathroom up looking anywhere I think she could get to, like the bathtub, behind the toilet, in the closet. Eventually give up confused, but remember ghosts are a thing and just assume that was one. Go back to watching TV, and when my mother finally comes home, run up to her and tell her I saw the dog all excited. To this day I can still see her looking at me with shiny black eyes and walking into the bathroom in my mind. The thing is, she was blind with milky white eyes when she died, so that was weird. She could see me apparently. My mother still remembers that. At least me telling her. I have more stories. Ghost. Quite a few Sasquatch, even a Wampus cat one. Feel free to post anything you've experienced. Alright, so this next one happened on Christmas Eve about 10 or so years ago. But this also happened to my brother at the same time it did to me. We still talk about it sometimes. Be me Christmas Eve, downstairs relaxing while mom is cooking in the kitchen. Be same house I've always lived in, one with ghost poodle sighting. Hear someone coming down the stairs, could only be my brother or my girlfriend who was asleep at the time. Stand up and T-pose like a spurg thinking it's my brother, because of where the footsteps come from. Can't see them due to the stairs' first landing being out of sight unless I go to the stairs and look up them. Sound stops at the first landing coming down, and then nothing. Hear another set of heavier footsteps following my brother's room door open. It's loud. He comes down this time and is confused because he saw the back of me go down the stairs in all white. Be wearing something entirely different. Don't remember what. Now for my brother's perspective. Be my younger bro. Coming out of my room to see if food is ready. See a white figure turn a corner to the steps and hear them walk down them. Go down after them, thinking it was an older bro wearing all white PJs or some shit because he has those. Come to see real bro downstairs just looking confused. Relate story, and am told that older bro who heard the figure walking but never saw it. This is the second time my brother has seen it. First time turning the corner to the upstairs bathroom, but only ever the back of it. I guess I'll tell the story my friend's father had in Florida, the same one who saw the Wampus cat. I'll tell it from his perspective. Be friend's dad, 1950s. Be visiting Florida to see brother for a bit. Decide to go out early to get some fresh oranges from a local farm bro knew of. Go before sunlight because always woke up early to go fishing, hunting, etc. Get oranges. Driving back in bro's pickup truck on one of those raised roads they have down in there. Forested swamp on both sides of us. Foggy. Crack of dawn now as the sun rises to the right of us as we see something large and hair at the edge of our headlights walk out of the swamp and up onto the road. Brownish black, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall, and walking on 2 legs as it crossed in front of us. Bro slams on brakes. He is driving. Hard, and we skid and watch this thing cross for no more than a few seconds. Watch it go down back into the swamp, parting the grass as it went. Open the glove box. Take out the .357 that was in there and a flashlight to go look for this thing. Go to the spot it went in, and can still hear it walking through thigh-high alligator, cottonmouth-infested water. Brother is freaking out about seeing whatever it was and wants to leave, but I want to go in after it to see if I can get a better look. Bro says he'll leave me if I go into the swamp after it. Give up, go back to the truck and have a quiet drive home with bro. Didn't know what the hell it was until decades later when seeing The Legend of Boggy Creek. He told these stories with such clarity for a man his age. Sadly, he passed away a long time ago now when I was still a child. I wish I could have asked him questions about this stuff now.
Last Christmas. I lived near a lake which was in a small forest/park area. Loads of people and kids hanging around during the day. It is well known to have been muggings and attacks there during the night. A corpse was found by the lake once, apparently a man who didn't pay his debts. Several other vague reports of people who drowned in that lake under mysterious circumstances, most likely crime-related. Most people recommend to stay away from it during the night. I worked Christmas Eve that day, and a coworker offered to drive me to work the day before because I usually take the train. He lives across the park. He tells me to just cross the park and find the gate. Very skeptical, but agree to it. The next day, 6 a.m. It is pitch black outside. Get really nervous, but decide to do it anyway. As I start walking towards the lake, the lights from the houses and streets fade. There are no lights whatsoever in the park. The moon illuminated the lake in the middle, but it got really dark because of how thick the foresty bit was. I follow the path which goes just along the lake. The path which was wide enough to drive on has now slimmed down to be just enough for one person to walk on. The path strays from the lake and starts going into the forest. It gets really dark and starts to look like the first Slender game. Exactly the same when I look up and see the sky behind the treetops. I have been walking for about 15 minutes and it does not feel like I am getting closer. I come to a small concrete building. Looks like a small bus shelter. The path sways so you can see behind the building. I stop and my entire body freezes. By now my eyes have somewhat adjusted to the darkness and the moonlight breaking through the treetops. The light falls on what seems like a hunched-over man. I think it is probably a homeless person. The wind starts to blow, and the clothes on it start to move. It looks like he is wearing some rugged cape or long coat. It slowly stands up and his cape becomes quite wide. I am 6'3", but this thing was almost as tall as the shelter, which are quite big. It is standing up, but I cannot make out if it is looking at me or if I am looking at its back. I cannot move, and I feel like this is where I am going to die. I keep thinking it is going to attack me, or if it is a homeless person, he is going to stab me. It starts moving, and it seems like it is taking a step towards me. Something snaps in me and I turn around and I run like never before. I do not dare to look back. I call my coworker and say there is no way I'm going through there. He picks me up at a different spot. I've never been so terrified in my life. I'm glad I don't live there anymore. That was the scariest experience in my life. I still remember being frozen and just looking at that thing. Then again, it could have been a homeless person, and my mind putting a spoopy spin on the whole thing.
5 years ago, on a business trip in New York City. I live in Michigan. Company springs for a nice room at a fancy, ritzy hotel because most places are booked near the venue I am attending. Watching television late one night. The room is pitch black. Only the light from the television across the room. Some old British sitcom. Everyone has a British accent. Get sleepy, but still very much awake. Decide to call it a night and turn the television off. Turn off the television during a scene with people sitting in what looks to be a living room. Scene is focused on a silver-haired woman with one of those like 60s bouffant hairdos. As the television screen fades to black, the woman is still very much visible, like crystal clear and still lit. The television is now pitch black, but the woman's head is still on the television, still lit. She is smiling and talking like she was in the scene. But then, slowly turns and looks directly at me and gives me the most evil, sadistic grin. I cover my head under the pillow and scream while literally shitting my pants. I can hear the woman on the television laughing maniacally. Too terrified to move, I feel around for the phone on the nightstand, head still under the pillow. Find the phone. It is cordless. Call the front desk and ask for maintenance to come to my room as soon as possible. Wait for maintenance to knock. Get up and answer the door. Explain that I was sick and could not make it to the toilet. Apologize and ask for another room. The hotel obliges with extreme courtesy. Shower, but do not sleep well. Restless sleep and no television for weeks after that incident. I will never forget that sadistic look on that woman's face and her evil, maniacal laugh.
I initially posted this on a different forum, but hey, I'll post it here too since I didn't get much advice. So this may sound odd, to the point of borderline schizophrenia. To be honest, I ignored it for a few years. However, my symptoms are getting worse, and after a friend at a locked location on camera confirmed my momentary disappearance, I realize I can't shelve this away mentally any longer. I've had small moments where things rapidly are shifted into view, almost like a photo which has been double exposed, to the point where one image gains more dominance over the other and fully replaces it, only to shift back to the original. This started out small, a few minutes gone here, a few seconds elsewhere. Usually I'd have a bloody nose, feel faint, and/or end up fainting soon after returning. Body weakness and lethargy, like none other, usually remains for a few days to a week after. The first major time this occurred in 2020 for me, I was bedridden for a week. It's worth noting, I was using a DIY Hemisync device and audio based on the old patents I found. I doubt they played any factor, but in case anyone has theories, I thought I'd provide that information. The next major time, I was at work. I was working at a closed facility, a short-term interim facility for mental health patients with my former friend. While on the floor, I sat in a chair to rest a moment, and suddenly I was standing on a beach for around 30 seconds at most. The next thing I know, I'm slammed back into the chair and my former friend is checking on me, saying he looked everywhere for me, that I wasn't on the cameras, and that the door system showed I never used my pass to go anywhere, but that I'd been gone for about 15 minutes. The door system I went to verify myself, as our security staff always left the room accessible for us in case of emergencies or faulty badges. My nose began bleeding soon after, and I ended up leaving work for a few days to rest. I've since slowly had more and more of these occurrences. Most recently, as I was falling asleep, another began. I've had a strange lung sickness for around 3 weeks now. This was during the worst of it, around a week ago. When I spoke to the doctor at the ER, they assumed it was a viral infection, as the time prior they thought it to be bacterial, and the antibiotics proved useless. They made no effort to give me antivirals, and instead sent me home. I spent most of this time working regardless, as I had no fever, and my job didn't care. Different job, and we are horribly short-staffed and I'm poor. This time when I slipped, I was gone for several entire months. I didn't process all of it fully, so it could have been a literal fever dream. But I remembered too many specifics. I remembered the bar that I worked at, my favorite client's name and the day and time he always came in, what drink he liked. I remembered struggling with paying rent and the exact cost minus utilities which fluctuated often, etc., etc. The hardest part was going back to work after my normal job. It felt distant by an entire lifetime's worth. I had been living in spring of 2026, and now I was back in 2025 in an entirely different city. I ended up crashing out. I went for a road trip on my own with my camera to that city, as I had thought of moving there anyway. On that trip I ended up lost and out of gas, and I stopped at a bar in an industrial district to ask for help. And it was the same bar from that damned glitch, double exposure. I'm not really sure what to call them. At the end of the day, I'm fucking terrified. This seems to be worsening, and even prior to this I was already thinking about the what-ifs, like getting stuck in some other world line or something. Honestly, depending on the one, I wouldn't complain. But this whole thing is freaking me out. I remembered reading into JT years ago here, and I figured this is probably the only corner of the internet that isn't full of bots or trolls, and maybe someone would take this seriously and offer some insight on what the hell this could be, and how maybe it could be happening. I'm glad to see it still exists. P.S. It's also worth mentioning these aren't very common. I've only had around 10 or so noticeable ones in my entire life, but the frequency of them is rapidly growing. Some are full shifts. Sometimes things snap over into here, and other times it starts to happen, and then it's like I walk away far enough, and the distortion ends, like a field of energy. I spoke to some trusted psychologists about it, including a close friend who's known me for years, and even after relaying this, they do not believe I meet any of the criteria for schizophrenia or extreme derealization and daydreaming.
A couple of years back, get out of work at 10 p.m. Start walking across a big, empty parking lot to my car, whistling to myself. Step off the sidewalk onto asphalt. Someone else starts whistling. I stop whistling, slow my steps, and feel like I am being watched. They are good at it, but it is not a tune I recognize. Hand-on pocket knife feels like it will not do me much good. Try to source the location in case something rushes me. It is all around me and above, but not coming from the building, or the roof, or the tree line, or the distant roadway. The sound is literally circling me, grows more distant as I near my car. Get in the car, Pull to the front of the building, still hear it in the car like it is above me. Sprint up the staircase to the building to punch out, sound still behind me. Can hear it through door of building. It is no longer growing further. What the fuck is this thing going to wait for me outside? Heart pounding. 5 minutes later, punch out. Eerily quiet out now. Jump in car and fucking go. Don't whistle after dark, fellas.
Be me. Be a 15-year-old. Be sitting next to a large pond at the back of my home at the time, which was situated at the border of a forest. I usually like to spend time at the pond, sometimes going for a swim or just sitting around. Get a strange, spooky feeling. I see something in the water, cannot make out what it is. It is coming towards me. I get up as it gets closer. It emerges from the water. It is a massive tortoise. Somehow the giant tortoise has followed me home and it is in my backyard now. I feed it fruit and stuff and sit on its back. Later the tortoise heads back into the woods for the evening. Just a neat memory. A few years later, going for a walk in the woods. I am a few minutes away from civilization now, but not that deep into the woods. Things go quiet. No noises. No birds or insects singing. I feel a sense of dread. Make my way home. I keep looking around, trying to find out what is stalking me, or what is causing me to panic. The feeling gets worse, and my legs feel like jelly. Hear rustling in some grass. A black and white doggo emerges and walks home with me. I reach a paved road close to home, and the feeling of fear has gone. Make it home. The doggo still with me. I wanted to give him a snack, but my cat chased him off when we made it home. It's probably a good idea to take a dog with you when you're out in the woods. Be a little older, about 20, deep into the woods, about an hour from a public road. There are streams with waterfalls in the woods that I like to visit sometimes, close to the river. Everything is quiet, no birds or insect noises, feeling of dread. I am standing there listening, trying to rationalize away the feeling of fear. It is the middle of the day, it is sunny. No need to be paranoid, I tell myself. I am still just standing very still and listening. My instincts win. Hear something large rustling through the bushes a few moments later. It is still a ways off. It is getting closer. It sounds huge, and it is coming towards me. I try to get a look at what it might be. It is getting closer, but I still do not see anything. Hear branches snapping. It is only 15 meters or so away now. I nope out and run out of there. This happened a few times in those same woods, where things would go quiet and I'd feel like I was being watched. The last time it happened, I was still close to the edge of the woods, just a few minutes in and close to a public road when something large came rushing towards me again. I never got a look at it, unfortunately. I stopped visiting the woods after that. There were a lot of disappearances at the time, and it didn't feel worthwhile anymore when you feel like you have to look over your shoulder all the time.
I died when I was 10. I lived in a house at the countryside with no electricity because my dad was a hippie back then. I forgot to blow out the paraffin lamp in my room right next to my bed, so it sucked up all the oxygen. I got pulled up and guided to the windows, and there was an army of dead people in brown robes. Hundreds, maybe even thousands. They looked at me and left. I screamed as high as I could, and my dad came running. I explained it to him, and he said he was worried about me because he thought I was crazy. Later, he realized that the paraffin was out, and the thing that burns and gives the light was all burnt out. Then he realized that I might have spoken the truth. He spoke with a librarian about it, and they organized a meeting. There was people from all over the world there with Nepalese hats and little boxes. They gave me one of the boxes. I still have that box. It's a box in the shape of a heart. Maybe it was all a dream, but who knows? This is the box they gave me.
8 years ago, me at work. Get a call from my older brother. Our Aunt Clara, who is very elderly, not doing so well. Not expected to be with us much longer. Older brother a registered nurse and living with Aunt Clara to provide assistance. Everyone to meet at Aunt Clara's as soon as possible. Ask my manager to leave early. Get approval and rush to Aunt Clara's. Park and go to the front door and knock. Hey, it is Anon. No answer. Go to the side door. Side door is locked but will open if you jiggle the handle a certain way. Jiggle the side door handle and let myself in. Hey guys, it is Anon. Still no answer. Everyone is probably upstairs. Go sit in the living room and wait. See movement in the kitchen. It is Aunt Clara. Go sit at the kitchen counter. She does not notice me at first. She hums a somber tune I do not recognize. After a moment, she looks up at me and shakes her head. Seen a lot of trouble in my day. Done got good and tired. In her heavy southern accent. Daddy told me never let them forget what you done here. The dementia talking. I can tell she is tired. Where is older brother, Aunt Clara? She does not answer. Just turns and slowly starts up the stairs at the back of the kitchen that lead upstairs. About to get up and help her. The house phone rings. I answer. It is my older brother sobbing. We are already at the hospital. It is too late. She is gone. Realize what I just witnessed. I cry so hard I almost puke. Seeing her one last time in the casket at the funeral was gut-wrenching. Rest in peace, Aunt Clara. I will never let them forget your story.
I was a young teen and alone at my house. Because I lived in a tropical country at the time, the living room always had the door between it and the patio open. I was goofing around in the computer located in the living room, and then I heard and saw a barn owl fall inside the house through the door, probably because some asshole threw a stone at it, as people had negative preconceptions about them back then. I didn't have those ideas as I knew they were just animals, but the way the eyes of the owl looked under dim light on that white feather coat fucking scared me shitless to the point that I couldn't conjure a word. I actually babbled on those short but long 5 seconds. It truly looked alien, and its eyes looked like a dark void. It was the only time I've actually felt my I'd scream at my ego, "Run," while my ego was screaming back, "Stop messing around, it's just a bird." Eventually, I regained composure and grabbed the owl. Surprised it just let me do it now that I think about it, and placed it on a lemon tree in my yard. While I love scary movies and shit, I have never experienced that kind of conflicting fear in my life, and nothing as scary as that.
Be me. Older sister has to leave town for a few days. Drops my nephews off at my apartment. Boys are 8 and 5 years old. Up late the final night of their stay. Boys are sleeping across from me on the pull-out couch bed. Notice the oldest boy rustling in his sleep, like he is fighting something. He eventually calms down. After a short moment, the youngest boy starts rustling like he is fighting something. Morning comes. Oldest boy says he had a bad dream about a crazy man with a bag over his head. Youngest boy too scared to talk. Sister comes to pick up her kids. go to the front office to check for mail. Find out the building manager took his own life that night. Put a bag over his head and asphyxiated himself with helium.
Reminds me of something that happened when I was 15 when visiting my uncle's family. Uncle's family lives on a ranch surrounded by deep woods. Me sitting on the rear deck looking out over the backyard. Backyard only maybe 60 feet away from the tree line of the woods. See my baby cousin playing with her male neighbor friend. Kids are about the same age of 6 years old. Very cute seeing them romp around together. Lay on a lawn chair staring at the sky and let my mind wander as I take in the beauty of the outdoors. Hear my baby cousin shouting angrily. Something like, "He is my little brother and you cannot have him, you big meanie." The neighbor kid is not her real brother, obviously. They were just pretending. Anyway, look up to see baby cousin shouting at literally nothing in the woods. Baby cousin does a very cute and pouty twirl away from whatever it was she was shouting at and folds her arms and stomps away as if victorious. Start to chuckle because it is so cute. Suddenly a tree just falls over on its own. The tree was perfectly healthy, about 25 feet tall with a trunk about 1 foot wide. Tree falls over from its roots. Roots now exposed as the tree settles on its side. Tree falls right where the neighbor boy was standing just moments earlier. Rest of my family rushes out the back door hearing the ruckus of the tree falling over. I tell them what I saw. My dad and my uncle went to examine the fallen tree. Determined that there was absolutely no reason for the tree to fall over on its own. Roots perfectly healthy and intact. The ground is firm and the soil is not wet or loose. Aunt says it must be my baby cousin using her gift again. Brushes it off like it is a regular occurrence and goes for a smoke. Like, what?
Story from Central Texas. Be me. Last Christmas, girlfriend wants to drive out to her mom's house in Northeast Texas. 6-hour drive. Decide to take her sister and her boyfriend along with us. Be about 3 a.m., 3 to 4 hours into the drive. Miles from any kind of actual town in the middle of the forest. See someone walking along the side of the road. Girlfriend's sister, the only other person awake, tells me to slow down and ask if he needs help or something. Get way closer and see that this thing is about 8 feet tall, walking on all fours. Looks almost like a huge coyote. Curious, I slow down a bit more. As we get closer, my girlfriend's sister wakes up her boyfriend and my girlfriend to take a look, driving around 5 miles per hour. As we start passing it, everyone begins screaming. Look over to see why everyone is freaking out. See a very deformed human face staring back at me. Girlfriend and her sister, who are both like 1.5 feet away from it, start crying their eyes out. Speed off as fast as I can. Look back and barely see its outline sort of galloping towards us. Eventually lose sight of it. No idea what we saw, but it was the most terrifying thing I could imagine. I refuse to drive at night outside of a city. And my GF's sister, who lives out in the woods, pretty much lost it for a while. She couldn't sleep, had extreme paranoia, no one heard from her for weeks. Overall, pretty shitty Christmas.
I know every pasta friend says this, but this is not a LARP. Hopefully that's evident by how boring the encounter was, but I think about it a lot, and it bothers me. Be anon. Upstate South Carolina. Walking on a trail. Semi in the woods. Maintain trail that I can access through family property. Not super far out in the sticks. The main part of the trail is reasonably popular and has road access from a highway. The trail runs down a few miles. Technically ends in a gate. Past it is owned by some construction company that does not maintain the trail and does not use it. This part connects to our property. To the left goes further down to the end, the right to the actual trail. Decide to go left that time for no particular reason. The trail is a shitty dirt road with an embankment that leads uphill to some backyards, and then a construction site of red dirt and foundations. The end of the trail is some guy's land and gate, and a patch of woods. Get to the end. Stop like 25 to 30 yards from the gate, since I am not an asshole, and I do not creep near people's gates. Check phone. Look up. Holy shit, what the fuck is that? A buck standing on hind legs between some young trees looking directly at me. 1 to 2 seconds pass. It walks behind one of the trees. Trunk was not wide enough to hide behind. Disappears. I tactically shit bricks and walk away silently, pretending I saw nothing. Make a call on the way back to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources because I want to tell myself it was a weird-ass deer with chronic wasting disease. Offices are closed. Decide to drop it because there is no chance they believe me, and I do not want to get put on a psych hold or something. I have not seen anything else out there, but I did get stalked through the brush on the trail at night once for a few miles after my flashlight died. I've done a little research on my own, but there's no local folklore that even resembles what I saw. The only spoopy thing I was ever told about growing up was Spearfinger, and not by name. So seriously, does any Anon have any clue what I saw? It still bothers me thinking about it.
This one happened not long ago. Be me. Broke. So I live with my parents. Have night terrors, sleep paralysis, and generally bad sleep inherited from my dad. Having a dream one night. Everything is dark. Can barely see a door in the blackness. Approach the door and feel it with my hand in the dark. Locate the handle. It is lightly moving up and down, as if someone on the other side was playing with it. I carefully tried it to see if the door was unlocked. Handle suddenly fully lowers and the door abruptly opens. In a flash, some unseen person or entity encroaches on me and stabs me in the ribcage. Immense dread and pain. Wake up sweating, heart pounding. Just a dream. Calm down in a few minutes and go to sleep again. Do not think about it for some days. A week passes, and I'm having lunch with Mom. She has television on in the background. News playing. Talking about some home invasion. Mom cheerfully says that it reminds her of something. Asks me if I heard my dad make noises the other night. Say no. Apparently he woke up from a nightmare while repeatedly screaming something. She says he probably thought there was someone in the house. She laughs, finding it silly. I ask how long ago it happened. A week ago. Same night as my dream. What was he saying exactly, I ask. Do not remember. I think it was something like, do not open the door. Do not open the door. I have noticed certain patterns with my dad's night terrors and my own, as if they came in waves for the both of us at the same time, but none of them were as obvious as this one. Not an extremely scary story for this board, but it sent shivers down my spine when my mom told me about it.
Go to stay with my girlfriend in Canada where she used to live. I have never been. We both had a lot of free time, so we went for a bucket list item and took her friend's car to British Columbia. Basically just going to spend time, with the goal of light hiking in Pacific Rim National Park Reserve. We both have not gone hiking since we were pre-teens, but chomping at the bit for some freedom at this point. Eventually get to the park and start exploring it around midday. Totally non-committal, just talking and walking. Couple stuff. We know where we are, so after making it away from the car, we get hubris and decide it is fine if we make it back late. It is just before dusk, really moody and pretty when she disappears to relieve herself. just raises her voice to let me know the direction. Maybe 10 minutes later, I walk in the direction she went. It is quiet enough that I hear her before I see her. She hears me. Anon, her voice is shaky in a way I have never heard outside the bedroom. She slowly trudges up to me, stares at my chest, and just kind of hangs her hands on me. Pretty out of character, like she is sad or something. Really off vibes. She hesitates, and after two, "What is up?" she tells me. She was putting her jacket back on when she heard a super weird voice to her right. It spoke slowly, but it was unintelligible, but also clearly to her. She froze and stared in that direction, then heard something similar in the opposite direction. Started going toward me, recognized my sounds, called out to me. She knows I believe her and just kind of looks shaken. We walk back, and she is not creeped out by our surroundings, just seems confused, and like she is about to cry. She cheers up in the car, and eventually gets embarrassed that she told me something like that. Still 100% believe her. Thinking back, it affected the vibe of the whole time we spent in Canada, even though afterwards she was all chill. I'm in the EU, and she lives in Australia, or I'd have already gone back there. I 100% would have stuck around if I hadn't been in boyfriend mode. Sensing the genuine shock in her is the closest thing I've had to a supernatural experience. I'm convinced it's something that could happen again if I just spent more time out, like seeing a shooting star or a rescue helicopter. As for how she described it, she said, it was like a guy with a low voice, like it was you, me, doing it, doing a voice. And it was English just without making any sense, like I was about to say what. She always makes me repeat myself when I mumble.
This last Christmas, I went home to Utah to visit my family. I hadn't been back there for 4 years after I left for college, and I did everything in my power not to go back. However, this year my mother had been very sick without any diagnosis. All they knew was that she was getting worse. So I really had no choice but to go back for the holidays. As I drove through the canyon that led to the tiny town I came from, I grew very anxious. When I arrived, they welcomed me with open arms, and it was dinner time. We ate, talked a little bit, and then I insisted on going to bed because I was so tired. I woke up Christmas Eve to a pounding sound outside. I looked out my window and saw a little kid in our backyard hitting a stick against our shed like he was swinging a baseball bat. I opened the window and yelled out at him, telling him to cut it out and that it was too early to be doing shit like that. He looked up at him for a long moment and continued going about his business. I was in no mood, and I already have a distaste for children anyway. I put on some pants and went outside. I thought he had bolted when I looked over at our snow-covered peach tree and saw he was building a snowman. The snow was dirty and he wasn't wearing any gloves, but that's the kind of desperate thing you do when you're from a small town with shit snow to begin with. He picked up a stick, the same one he was hitting against the shed, which was now in 2 pieces, and shoved them into the snowman's midsection. I asked if he was cold, and he said a faint, "Yeah." He was a shy little kid, which I understood because I was a stranger. Then he said to me, "How's the cut on your hand doing?" At first, I didn't realize what he was talking about, and then I realized he was talking about this small scar on my palm I gave myself when I fell down a tree when I was 6 or so. I asked him how he knew I had that. He just went on picking up stones and putting them as a droopy smile. He then walked over to a bag of coal we had under our porch. He was acting like he owned the place. He pulled out a few charcoal pieces and put them on his eyes. I finally said to him, "Why are you building a snowman in my backyard?" And he said it was Christmas and that he always builds a snowman at Christmas. I asked him, "Who are you?" And he said his name was Ozzie, but that was just his nickname. The kid looked cold, so I asked if he'd like to come inside and call his parents. Everyone else was still asleep, and I put on some hot water on the stove. I showed him the phone and made myself a cup of tea and made him some cocoa. When he was done on the phone, he said they'd come pick him up. He sat down and I gave him his cup, and he said it was his favorite and that I made it just the way he liked it, with a ton of chocolate. He asked what I was drinking and he thought it was gross. I used to hate tea too, I told him, but that it grows on you once you get older. Eventually he started to warm up to me and started talking about his school. He said he didn't like it and that he hated all of his teachers. I asked him why, and he couldn't explain it. I told him it was important to work hard in school, and it's harder to catch up if you don't work hard now. I knew from personal experience, as I hated school when I was his age too, but forced myself to work hard after I knew college was my only way out of this town. He then said that he especially hated his teacher named Mr. Scott, who taught math. I thought this was strange, because I had a teacher by that same name when I was little too. He called the man creepy, which made me even more suspicious that it was the same person. But I knew that Mr. Scott had died the year I was a junior in high school. The boy then said that he missed his brother who had just died in a car wreck. Now I knew something was up because my brother had died too. I asked him what his real name was, but he wouldn't tell me, only saying that it was Ozzie. Finally, he got upset with my persistence and shouted at me, "Don't let him get away this time," and ran out the back door. I tried to run after him, but there was a knock at the door, and I answered it, thinking it was his parents. It was my uncle who had brought some presents for our tree. I hadn't seen this man in years, and he had aged so much I hardly recognized him. He put the presents under the tree, and I offered him a cup of coffee. He said sure, and then persisted to talk to me about what I had been studying, which hadn't been much considering I was going to a liberal arts college. He mentioned that he knew I would be in town because my father had told him. He tried to reminisce with me, though I didn't remember much from my childhood. He also asked if I was doing better since I tried to kill myself in junior high, which was really awkward, but I was doing better, so I told him I was fine. He then asked why I hadn't been drinking my hot chocolate, and I said I had been drinking tea. He then pointed out the entirely full cup of cocoa on the table. I thought it strange that the boy would talk about how much he loved it, but not drink a single drop. I told him it was for Ozzie, who was just here, but ran out the back door. My uncle replied, "Ozzie? Wasn't that your nickname when you were little?" Finally, my uncle seemed frustrated and told me to wish my family a Merry Christmas, and he left. I went to the backyard to see if the boy was there, and surprisingly he was. I told him he should get home to his parents because they must be worried about him. The boy started crying and asked why I didn't stop him. "Stop who?" I asked, and he said, "My uncle." "My uncle just brought a few presents to wish us a Merry Christmas," I said. Now the little boy said I was a loser, and he didn't want to talk to me anymore. I had had enough, so I went to grab onto his arm and he bolted away and I chased him. He climbed up the peach tree. He wouldn't come down, so I had to prove I wasn't taking any bullshit from a kid, so I climbed up after him. He got really far out on a branch trying to get away from me, and finally he fell, trying to save himself at the last moment. I got down and ran to him, and he was crying his eyes out. He was bleeding badly on his palm where he tried to grab the tree. I rushed inside to find some bandages and was met by my uncle. He had let himself in the house, and this made me angry because he had a history of doing this before. It's a small town, so we don't lock our door every day, especially on Christmas Eve. I was full of adrenaline, so I told him, "You can't just fucking come in here whenever you like." And he said, "Calm down, Ozzie." And I shouted at him not to call me that. I told him to get out and to not return. "You're a piece of shit, and if you don't fucking leave, I'll call the police, you fucking shithead." His face was full of rage, and I couldn't believe what I had just said. I had worked so long to keep that a secret that I had never spoken it out loud before, or even thought about it for years. He threw out a few grunts, and he stormed out of the house. I locked the door. I found the first aid kit and ran outside to find Ozzie. He wasn't there anymore, and neither was his snowman. Only a puddle of dirty water was left.
I live in a huge house that was built in the 1800s, with just my mum, dad, and 2 dogs. My mum and dad are sleeping in their room along with one of my dogs. The other dog is sleeping downstairs. I am on the phone with my boyfriend at around 5 in the morning, and I hear the sound of someone playing the piano very slowly. I assume that it's the TV downstairs, even though my dad never leaves the TV on down there. I had a weird urge to check on my dog, and also I was feeling hungry, and I was curious about the music playing because it had been going on for an hour by now. So I go downstairs to find that the TV is off, my dog is asleep, and the music is still playing. There is no radio. There is nothing except the TV downstairs, and it is turned off. The music continues to play and gets louder. At this point, I just want to get the fuck out of here. I go into the kitchen to grab a snack. My boyfriend asks if I'm breathing heavily into the phone, but I wasn't, and he kept hearing things. Then, all of a sudden, a cabinet opens and closes loudly. This is when I got really scared and ran upstairs. But while going upstairs, my boyfriend says that he just kept hearing someone breathing super heavily into the phone. It gave us both the creeps. I know it's not as crazy as most stories probably, but I've never experienced anything like this, so it freaked me out. Not to mention, for the past few weeks, I have been seeing things in my hallway late at night. I don't know if shit like this just kind of comes with buying a new house, but I can't even fall asleep anymore.
When I was probably 5 years old, my mother bought me a doll named Allie that was all the rage at the time because you could put a small chip in her and out reached her hand and she'd talk and play whatever game was on the card with you after seeing the movie Chucky. All dolls immediately began to scare the absolute hell out of me, and the outstretched arm Allie had looked like she was holding a knife when there wasn't a card in it. I stopped playing with the doll because I was convinced that it was alive and evil, so I threw it up into the back of my cupboard so it couldn't watch me. One day I became very frightened after I'd come into my room, and it was sitting in front of my bed, staring at me. This happened a couple of times, and each time I would try and rationalize its appearance. But nonetheless, I backed away and didn't take my eyes off of it. This began happening more and more frequently, and mostly at night. I'd put it somewhere on the other side of the house, and then I'd wake up to a noise in the middle of the night, and it'd be there, sitting at the end of my bed, waiting. I didn't tell my mother because I never thought she'd believe me. It got to the point when I couldn't sleep. I'd delay bedtime as much as possible and then just sit up in my bed frightened and crying, One night I was so frightened that I was sure that it wanted me dead. All that it had done to frighten me, it was surely going to kill me as soon as my family were asleep. Hours after being sent to bed, I couldn't take it anymore. The thought itself was killing me, and its smug face was excited for my demise. It got to the point where I was crying so much I had a massive anxiety attack and was screaming so loud my mother freaked out and ran in, thinking I was dying. And I continued crying like I was because I was determined I was going to be killed. I told her what had been happening and how it had been following me, and she dismissed it, but after me begging her, she told me she'd throw it away. She took it outside and said that she'd take it to the dump the next day and it couldn't hurt me. The next day she trashed it and I finally got some sleep. I was still scared, but I was sure that it wouldn't be able to find me again and I would be safe. It took a while to get the thought out of the back of my head and to finally get back to a proper sleeping pattern. Until one night I woke up to banging and looked through the dark in my room and saw it standing at my door. Never have I screamed so loud. And of course I didn't run because it was standing right in my doorway. It had come back all the way from the other side of town to kill me. It had dug up through tons of trash and found its way back to me through the rain to get its revenge. Turns out my mum didn't throw it out because she spent like $70 on it, and my brother is an asshole.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.